What's up, guys? We are back with another Super 7 Ultimates review. We're sort of working backwards on this one because I took a look at the SDCC exclusives for this year already, but there's a whole wave, well, the wave is 2, Godzilla Ultimates that we need to take a look at as well. So we're taking a look at Toho Wave 1 today, which means we're taking a look at Biollante and Godzilla. We're going to knock them out all in one, and they both come in these ridiculously oversized packages because they are ridiculously oversized figures. I really like, and I got to stress this, I really like these slipcovers. I love the texture because it's supposed to mimic Godzilla's skin. At first I wasn't really sure why it was textured, and then it sort of dawned on me, like, obvious, this is supposed to be Godzilla's skin, which is just a cool little detail. I like that. So the front of the slipcover does have the kanji for the actual name of the film. So Godzilla vs. Biollante, and then the back just gives us the English as well. Now pop that slipcover off, and of course you got your figure there in the window. There's this like black and green color scheme for the packages. And then the back of the box, rather than giving us like a bio for the character itself, it gives us the name of the film, and then it gives us a write-up for the Heisei era of Godzilla, as well as a very iconic shot of Biollante chomping on Godzilla. Of course, this is not the version of Biollante that we're getting, but it's a pretty iconic part of the film. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Ultimate Toho Wave 1. So we've got Godzilla and we've got Biollante here. Now, of course, we're going to have to tackle these separately because they couldn't really be any more different from one another when it comes to being actual figures. So we're going to start with the big man himself. We're going to start with Godzilla, and then we will get to our giant mutated rose monster. So as far as moving this big guy around, he is, again, the same kind of figure as before with that SDCC exclusive, which is to say that there's some stuff that I really like, and then there's some stuff that's just sort of normal for a Godzilla figure. Among pretty much every brand, your NECAs, your Monster Arts, they all have limitations. It just sort of varies depending on what is and isn't limited. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. You've got a head that can look up pretty good. So the head is independently articulated from like the neck sleeve, which doesn't really have a lot of give side to side or forward and backward, but it does add another swivel point. We've got, this tail is always going to be a problem, always in the way. You've got arms that go out at the shoulders. This arm, this one in particular, is super, super tight. It does, it's still fine, but it's super tight. You've got rotation, you've got your bicep swivel. The one area that I really like these, though, which is kind of funny because it's an Ultimates, is that the elbow range for a Godzilla figure is really good. It's still just about 90, but it's really good. You've also got swivel, you've got swivel and hinge at the wrist. The torso is really just a twist. There's not a whole lot of movement there. I wish there was. It would be one of the bigger wins for a Godzilla figure to be able to kind of crunch in any real way. It just always seems to be very difficult to achieve that with a lot of figures. Your legs are going to go out a little bit at the hips. They swivel. You've got single jointed knee. That's about all the range you got, though. You got swivel, and then you've got rocker, and we've got hinges. They're pretty tight, but you've got some hinge down at those ankles. The tail, of course, is a big component here with pretty much every Godzilla, and this thing is humongous. It's also fully ball jointed. There is no bendy tail or any of that kind of stuff here, so it can go out about that far. There's a lot of depth on this guy, and then you can also pull it out like in front of him. Well, maybe not in front of him, but really close. Like you can get it out to the side, and then it does sort of support its own weight a little bit too. That's always been a frustrating thing for me when it comes to Godzilla figures, is the tail and how it's implemented. On any given day of the week, I prefer a bendy tail. Sometimes I prefer fully ball jointed. I do think this looks really good. It's always, though, a displayability thing, because this is huge. You have to have the space to be able to actually use this, and if you don't, it's not even worth buying him because he's so deep front to back. But I do like the way that they've implemented this. Everything can move and everything can twist. And then that's a pretty good wraparound right there. Like that's pretty much almost all the way out to where his feet are right now. So that's pretty decent. You can get some nice, dynamic posing out of that. So he is fairly well articulated. There are areas of concern, which is pretty normal for a Godzilla figure. The torso is the big one for me. I just wish he could crunch in any real way. Otherwise, though, especially with those elbows, I'm pretty happy with the way these are turning out. Now, visually, I'm pretty happy with this guy. There is one major component to this figure that I would like to have seen some changes in, and It's almost kind of hard to explain why. The big area of concern is paint. So this particular Godzilla, so Goji, he's like a dark gray. He's a really dark gray, but he also has, a wash on him. So there's this dark gray and then there's a black over top. In certain lights, it's really hard to actually see that because of the, very similar nature of those colors. Like right now, I can see it just fine. Your mileage may vary on whether you can pick it up on camera, but seeing him bathed in these lights, it's very obvious that there is a lot of shading all over this figure. It's just really close to the actual skin tone. So it makes it kind of hard to pick out. I guess my criticism is that I kind of wish the paint on this guy, instead of being just this overall wash from head to toe, maybe some more purposeful accenting that would be more readily obvious to the eye. Maybe that makes sense. Or maybe that in addition to what we got here. Because I think, in a general sense, again, I've already kind of messed with this figure. The sculpt is good. It very much looks like the suit. This very much looks like Goji. I'm happy with the overall sizing and proportion and the musculature and the build on him and the thick tree trunk thighs and that big old Godzilla crotch, because this was like, a really big, beefy Godzilla, and I think it works really well in figure form. I'm happy with the way the body looks, the sculpt is done. I just feel like it could have been brought out a little bit more to make that a little bit more obvious, if that makes sense. The head sculpt I'm happy with. It looks good. Got that expression. This Godzilla has always kind of looked like cat-like to me, if that makes any sense, and it's really hard to put into words why, but it's always kind of looked cat-like in the expression and just sort of the way he sort of holds those expressions, if that makes any sense. I really like the eyes, the gritted teeth, the kind of furrowed brow, so he does look slightly angry. This Godzilla does have this slightly, sloped head, which looks really good. It's a unique kind of aspect to this era of Godzilla as well. So I'm happy to see a lot of these kind of callbacks to this suit and this version of Godzilla. You've got the spines that, of course, run down the back. These look really nice. They help to break up the figure, add a little bit of dimension to him. You've got different color as well with with that smoky gray and then the black on top of it to make it stand out. And of course, you can't not talk about the tail. Again, it is going to be a limiting factor when it comes to display. Obviously, not everybody has, this kind of shelving space to utilize a bunch of Godzillas on it. But if you have the space, it does help to make for a more dynamic and impactful figure by having this tail that is so super long. And it's not exaggerated. It should be really, really big. When they get to some of the Godzillas that have even bigger tails, I'm thinking like Shin Godzilla, I worry about how big that one's going to be. But this looks really good. The sculpt is nice. Again, I like the implementation of the million ball joints to give it what posability it does have. Paint is nice. Sculpt is good. Could have used a little bit more shading on it, though, similar to how is on the actual body itself. I feel like there's maybe not enough, and some of this gray looks a little too cakey almost. But overall, I do think it looks good. I just wish the paint was a little bit more, and again, this isn't maybe the best way to describe it, but it's the way that works for me. I wish the paint was maybe a little bit more purposeful in what they were trying to do. Now, as far as accessories goes, this Godzilla has some stuff. He continues to have the problem that I think a lot of these figures have, though, in that they don't include what we all expect them to include. So to start with, we do get an extra head sculpt, and I really like this head. I can't stress that enough. This is my preferred of the two. If anything, it looks a little bit more detailed. It looks slightly better painted, and I just like the expression. I like the open mouth. I like the screaming expression. I like the more furrowed brow. All of it works really well for this particular Godzilla. We do get some extra hands. So in the box, he's just got like normal old gripping hands. You get a set of fists. You get a set of style posy, grasping, grappling, attacking hands. You also get a singular left hand with the hole in it with the blood coming out. So this, of course, is to show him being impaled by Biollante, and I really like that. It's a unique one. That green really, really pops against the dark color of his skin as well, so that's kind of cool. And then we also get an extra piece to show up the idea of this being a set of two figures. It's being sold in a sense that you want to get both of them. So this is the vine wrap that goes around his neck from Biollante. So when you've got them locked in battle, you can have him battle damaged, you can have him freaking out, and you can have the vine wrapped around him while he's struggling with this giant rose monster. So I do really like this. I don't know if it's something I'm going to display him with, but I do really like it. Of course, The one thing he's missing is an atomic breath. And I know that there's an atomic breath in the New York Comic Con glow-in-the-dark variant, but I feel like every Godzilla from every manufacturer since the dawn of toys should have an energy effect. He should have an atomic blast. It's almost inexcusable to me that it's not included, because I want it for all of them. I'm that kind of Godzilla fan that if I have the opportunity, I'm going to have him doing a blast on every single figure. And so far, there's only one that includes one. So unfortunately, he doesn't have one. It's not the end of the world, but it's one of those things, it's like, that's the signature thing. He should have come with it, maybe rather than stuff like this. I do enjoy these kind of accessories because of the versus nature of these two figures, but I would really like to have an atomic blast to just annihilate Biollante as well. Now for our big rose monster, Biollante is weird, different, unique. It's a wonky looking thing. This is a really weird design that translates into an action figure oddly, is the best way to say it. And that's not just this figure. I would say the same for the Monster Arts Final Form Biollante. It's a weird design. It's mostly just a big brick. There may, however, be more that moves on this figure than you might expect, just by virtue of what they tried to do with all these vines and the tendrils. Now, I will say, I find it to be kind of frustrating, but there is a lot of potential here if you want to work at it. So let's see what she can do, see how she moves around. You've got a head that can look up and down pretty well. So this is on a ball peg, and there's actually really good clearance here. You've got your tilt, you've got rotation. The leaves are hinged and they can swivel. So some hinges are up and down, some are side to side. We've got swivel at this torso here, or whatever you want to call this. This does move. So you've got a little movement there. The rest of the figure is all the vines. Some of them are better than others. I find that some of them, specifically the ones with the mouths, sag really, really bad. So let's use this one as an example. You can, however, and I'll point this out now before I forget about it, you can move these tentacles and the vines and the everything all over. So they're not unique. You can take them like out of the back and put them on the side. So you can move those around if you want to play around with them. So you've got hinges. Let's use this one here. So this one, you've got hinges. It's just a normal peg. It's a straight peg that goes in, it hinges up and down, and it swivels. Well, get it locked in there. And it swivels. This one's just a standard vine. There's nothing else on it. The ones with the mouths do have, see, like right there, it just wants to fall right back down. That's what I'm talking about. So it does have multiple points of articulation. You've got a bend here in the middle and a swivel. And then you've also got another one here towards the end and a swivel. And then the mouths also, have chomping actions. So my only real concern is the fact that the ones that are most exciting, the ones with the mouths, both sides, they just want to sag down, which I obviously don't like. I like the way this looks with all of this stuff jutting out of it, and the ones that do hold really well. So what I'm going to likely do is just hit it with some Kiki and fix it. I don't like having to fix it. I don't think that I should have to do that, but that's where it is. Not a huge deal, not the biggest thing in the world, but at the same time, I do like the implementation of these. There is a decent amount of posability and just weirdness when it comes to how you want to position what you can position. So the fact that the leaves are articulated, the fact that the head has so much range, and the fact that you can move these vines around to get them into different positions without trying to, shimmy them into a place that they shouldn't go. I like the fact that the pegs are not unique in that way, so you can just kind of mix and match however you want. So it does have some articulation. Well, I guess it has a lot of articulation. It's just specific in terms of what it can and can't do. It is mostly a brick from here down, and then you may have the same issues that I'm having with the sagging vines. But overall, I know I can fix that, and it's not a huge thing. And I do like the dynamic nature of being able to have all these, crazy, jagged, weird-looking vines jutting out all over this big thing. Now, visually, she is very similar to Godzilla, and that's mostly what I'm going to talk about in terms of her paint. This is another instance where I feel like the paint is good, but it could be so much better, and it could be more impactful. She does not have the same level of shading that Godzilla has. She is mostly, at least as far as I can tell, because she's really, really dark. She's like a gray-black, very similar to Godzilla. She doesn't really have any shading on her. Where she does have shading is on the green for the actual leaves. Like there's definitely a wash up there, but it's just like it's probably a dry brushing, but it's just a little hit. So there's not a lot that seems to be purposeful there. what is meant to be painted, uniquely and independent from just a wash does look pretty good. So you've got things like the teeth in the rose, and you've got the teeth in the mouths. The mouths are painted on the inside too, and those look pretty good. So I'm happy with that. I'm really happy with her sizing, especially in comparison to Godzilla, and we'll do sizing with the two and other stuff here shortly. I think she looks good. She's big and bulbousy. It sounds really weird to say this about a female thing. Big and bulbousy, she's got the seed in the middle there, and it's kind of a translucent thing. So you've got different textures and finishes there. It's obviously a little bit more glossy than the rest of the figure. She does have a little bit of a shine to her, maybe to the negative, especially on these leaves. Like they're almost kind of like fake flower kind of shiny. The rose, though, I think looks really good, and it's a stark comparison to the rest of the figure in terms of like the finish and the overall color. It's a very, very deep and bright red. But the sculpt on that looks terrific with the folds and all the petals and everything. I really like that, and you've got that little tiny mouth in there just ready to chomp, so that looks cool. Again, I do really like the tendrils, the vines. Despite my frustration with actually moving them around, I do think they look good, and I really like the mouths on these two, and we'll get to the accessories, but I like what they did with some of the accessories as well. So each one of these, they're all different, they're all unique, so there's not a whole lot of similarity between them. So you've got them kind of going in different directions and kind of being their own thing in many ways. So they're kind of got like a mind of their own in terms of what they're doing and where they're going at any given time. So this does look pretty cool. Like, I'm overall happy with her. I do wish, just like Godzilla though, that the paint was maybe a little bit more impactful and that she had a little bit more detailing, because there is so much sculpt that I'd rather see come out in paint than just sort of lights and shadows. Now, as far as accessories goes, Biollante has a few things. This is one of those figures where it's kind of expected that she's not really gonna have a lot. Giant rose monster, not the greatest assortment of accessories, but she's got a few. So to start with, we do get an extra head, and this is similar to what we're gonna see for the Godzilla figures. You get a standard head, and then you get the screaming, roaring, whatever you wanna call it, head. So this is just her with her mouth open. And then we do get some extra accessories in relation to the vine mouths. So these come off, they're just pegs, pop them off, and then you've got battle damage options. So you've got like this little nub right here, you get two of them. They are hinged, so they still retain articulation, but you've got like the severed vine head with the blood all over it, just a little battle damage if you want to, have her get all roughed up. And then you've also got the actual severed mouths to give to Godzilla if you'd like. So this is just the opposite end of it, basically. So you've got the petals on there, you've got the mouth, and then you've got the torn up vine. You get two of these also. So you get two battle damage nubs, you get two of the loose mouths, and then you get the extra head. So again, not a lot of stuff, but kind of what I would expect. I'm not too surprised by this assortment in many ways. She very much has all the stuff I would really have expected to have gotten. The only thing, again, with this set of figures that I really think we're missing comes to Godzilla with the lack of an atomic breath. I'm pretty happy with her assortment overall. Now, as far as size comparisons go, let's start with another Ultimate. So here is a Transformers, which means, it's slightly taller than average, but there's Bludgeon from Transformers, Wave 2? And he stacks up pretty well to these two. Of course, this stuff is not ever going to be in scale with any other Ultimates. They're not meant to be, because they are definitely their own thing, but this gives you an idea of exactly what you're going to be working with in comparison to other Ultimates. And then let's do a figure arts. Here is Superhero Piccolo. Obviously these figures are quite large. Let's do a Legions figure. So here's a Cosmic figure. Here's Cosmic Walter. Let's do a Hasbro figure. Here's a Legend. Here is Modular Iron Man. And then let's do one little guy. So here's a Plunderling, because why not? So these are really big. Biollante is far bulkier, but Godzilla is, of course, much, much longer, has got the tail, so it adds a whole lot of depth and dimension in a way that Biollante just doesn't have. But they are huge figures. Both of them are very big, some of the biggest Ultimates that we have gotten, period. So yeah, overall, these are pretty decent figures. They both have some issues and some quirks about them, though. Both are going to be very unique and different and limited when it comes to articulation. I don't think that's a surprise. That's not weird. It's an Ultimates figure, but it's also Godzilla stuff. So the design in many ways does impede articulation. It's not really a friend to that in many ways. I think both figures look pretty good. Sculpt is great, sizing is great. The one thing that's consistent between both is that they both need more purposeful paint, and I'm going to use that word again because I feel like it does express how I feel. I like the way they look, but they could look better if the paint was more impactful and, done in a more purposeful way. They both include some decent accessories, nothing groundbreaking. I do like the little bonus stuff that Godzilla comes with to play up the idea of him fighting Biollante, but I still would just have rather had an atomic breath. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates Toho Wave 1. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.